Welcome. I'm Kinetic Symphony. I hunt down and report on weird and true mysterious stories, from glitches to the paranormal. Case file number 823, written by OkayToDecay, the Chinese master of Spacetime. This happened in late summer, early fall 2020. At this time, due to the world event, wearing a mask was mandatory in all indoor places. This included public transport. I, 22 female, live in the Netherlands, specifically in a relatively new city that was built completely centered around public transport. Buses depart every few minutes in all different directions to cover the entire city. No matter where you live, there's a bus stop within walking distance. It's quite difficult to commute via car when traveling from one neighborhood to another. Only the bus and bike lanes go through the neighborhoods. When traveling by car, you usually have to drive all the way around the neighborhoods. The city was built this way to limit traffic in the streets and therefore ensure safety. This is important for context later on. I worked a morning shift in the next town over, 7 in the morning to 3 p.m. After work, I took the train home and arrived in my city around 3:30. My boyfriend, 25 male, picked me up at the central station and we went to grab some takeout at our favorite Chinese/Surinamese restaurant. We sat down in a small park and enjoyed our food outside, since the weather was still pretty nice around this time of year. Around 4:30, a mutual friend, 22 male, of ours, arrived at the central station. He joined us until my boyfriend and I decided to go home around 5:30. Our friend decided to go home as well, and we all walked towards the central station to catch the bus. All of us needed to get into the same bus as our friend's home is on the same route, just a few stops earlier than ours. We got into the bus and sat down on the back seat, 4 seats next to each other. I sat in the seat next to the window, my boyfriend sat next to me, and our friend sat in the seat next to the door, leaving 1 seat between my boyfriend and him. The bus got busy pretty quickly, since rush hour had started. The seat in front of me, facing me, not facing forward, stayed empty. Kind of odd since some people were standing due to no more seats being available. At the very last moment, a man stepped into the bus and sat down in that seat. He had a bag with Chinese/Surinamese takeout from the exact restaurant my boyfriend and I went to earlier that day. I pointed it out to him and we joked about the coincidence since it's a pretty unknown restaurant and slightly hidden in a side street. The man was pretty recognizable, red plaid button-up, worn-down shoes, dark blue jeans, a blue cap, and he wore his mask inside out and upside down. The bus departed and suddenly my allergies started acting up horribly. This was before I had been to the hospital and I wasn't on medication yet. I was used to allergy flare-ups but not so randomly. I felt my nose running under my mask and I didn't have any tissues with me. I wanted to use my sleeve so badly, but I figured that was disgusting, especially since someone was facing me. From this point forward, my focus was completely on the man in front of me and hoping he would get off so I could wipe my nose. He eventually got off. Our mutual friend had gotten off the stop before him. I wiped my nose and my allergy flare-up started disappearing as fast as it had appeared. My boyfriend and I started casually chatting while the bus continued on its route. It was driving very fast. Chauffeurs often do this so they arrive at the stations, mainly bus stops where they have to wait until the planned departure time to leave, early, and as a result they can have a quick smoking break. The bus got to one of the main bus stops and the chauffeur got off to smoke. He got there 5 minutes early. The same man that had gotten off earlier was waiting at the bus stop and stepped into the bus again. Sat down in the same seat across from me, mask upside down and inside out. Looked like he hadn't even taken it off, and the takeout bag on his lap. He looked at me and I looked at him. I felt shivers all over my body. My allergies started flaring up again. I looked away and stayed like that until my boyfriend and I got to our stop. We quickly left the bus. The man stayed inside the bus as it continued on its route. Both my boyfriend and I were absolutely spooked and couldn't figure out how that was possible. We went over all the possibilities, but nothing added up. This man couldn't have been there. It's impossible. He got off that bus. There's no way he could have made it to that stop before our bus got there. There's no car, no motorbike, nothing could have gotten there before that bus did. And yet, he was calmly waiting at the bus stop, taking food from the city center in his hand. Case notes for file 823. The Chinese master of spacetime. So we know that inanimate objects like, spoons or tennis balls or towel rods, they can vanish and reappear. Phase in and out of our dimension, I suppose. Can people as well? There have been a few stories reported of this. The most prominent one I remember reading myself is there was this kid that went down a water slide, one of those that are fully enclosed so you can't see the person going down it when they're inside, from the outside, and the kid didn't reemerge until like 15 to 20 minutes later, and other people were going down the slide too. Whoever was in charge at the top just didn't think anything was wrong until later on he remembered. So he physically wasn't there anymore until he reappeared. Maybe something similar happened here? This man, the Chinese master of spacetime, phased out, was moved forward in space, and then reemerged at that bus stop. Although I'm sure if that happened to him, he must have been confused out of his mind. It all makes some sense though, physically. Outside of a soul, if we have one, we're all just matter, excitations in the various fields of the universe. If an inanimate object can be moved or phased out, stands to reason that we could be too. Or, the man didn't phase out, he was duplicated. That could be a possible way to explain doppelgangers too. Although I think there's a separate side to that as well, because often people report feeling uneasy around a doppelganger. In this case, it seemed like he was just a normal man, just a copy of him. The other unlikely but possible explanation is that these were identical twins playing a prank. I've seen some videos of this happening, though usually not so elaborate and separated by great distances. But yeah, if you have an identical twin, and you dress the same, have the same takeout, you could give people a lot of mind-warped events, that's for sure. So it could have been just something as simple as that. Creepy file number 58, written by donttakemelightly. Yoo-hoo from the darkness. This happened 2 nights ago. I was taking my dog out to the bathroom in my backyard for the last time that night, around 1:30 a.m. I have a decent-sized backyard, and there aren't many streetlights or light pollution around, so it was basically pitch black apart from the torch on my phone. Anyway, the dog goes to the bathroom and I tell her, "Good girl, let's go inside." And instantly, I hear someone call, "Yoo-hoo," out from somewhere I couldn't see. It sounded like they were just at the fence line, fairly close to where I was, maybe 10 meters away. It was definitely a person, not an animal sound. They didn't scream it loud or even shout it very loudly, just called it out sort of creepily, and it was obviously directed towards me. I nearly crapped my pants, and my dog was super startled and started growling and barking instantly. She was looking exactly towards where it came from. Anyway, I wasn't sticking around, so I bolted inside with my dog and locked the doors. I just don't know who it was or why they did it. It was really late, there was no other light source, and I don't know who would be wandering around in the pitch black like that. I live in a very low-crime neighborhood, as crime is basically unheard of. Now, every time I take my dog out for the loo, I feel like I've walked into a horror movie. Some people suggested owls. No. I know the species of owl where I live, and there's very few, and they're very rare to see. None of them sound like "yoo-hoo" in an older woman's voice. Some people suggested neighbors. I'm so close with my neighbors that I babysit their kids, look after and feed their animals, tend to their garden if they ask, etc. They would have told me if they had an old grandma that likes to walk about at night and to keep an eye out. I asked some neighbors today and no one saw, heard, knew anything that night. Although one neighbor said they'd check their cameras and if they see someone, they'll send it to me. Case notes for the creepy file number 58. Yoo-hoo from the darkness. So I'm just trying to put myself in your shoes. What would I do if I heard, while walking my dog, in the darkness, yoo-hoo? I would be freaked out, so I think we share that, and I would have bolted inside, so I guess I would have done the exact same thing. I don't know if I'd assume it's supernatural, and it might not be. It might just be some really twisted, messed up person just playing a prank. It's not really a prank in this case, this is a bit too terrifying.